you suffering with a habit that's become destructive, or maybe you know someone whose habits are impacting you or your family?
A secret that is becoming increasingly out of control, or maybe even a full-blown addiction to alcohol, drugs, gambling, food, social media, shopping or pornography.
I'm Emma Heath, and this is my colleague, Jules Radford. We spent the last session looking at denial and how it blocks recovery, isolating us from others, from ourselves and from God. In this session, we will explore whether there is a power greater than ourselves which can help us. Over these testimony sessions, people involved with the National Recovery Course are going to bring you the Recovery Course testimonies, real people, real stories and real transformation. The Recovery Course follows the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, but as they were originally intended. A set of 12 spiritual steps where we put Christ back at the very heart of recovery. We will cover one step in each of these sessions. The course recognises that our destructive habits are a consequence of pain, hurt, a broken relationship, loneliness, or an issue from childhood. The truth is, we all carry pain, and it's hard to become an adult without carrying some of the baggage of life. We know that identification is key when addressing struggles, and what better way to bring hope than to share in people's stories of how they have been set free from the trap of addictions, compulsive behaviours, and other destructive habits.
Step 2 is we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Here we have a choice to start doing something about our struggles. There is strength in admitting we have difficulties, and believing that God can help is a huge step forward. It says in 2 Corinthians 12:9 in the Message version, "My grace is enough. It's all you need. My strength comes into its own in your weakness." The purpose of step 2 is to help us come to our senses and realise the insanity of some of the stuff we've been doing. We have lived with our addictions and compulsive behaviours for so long now, possibly without any major consequences, and we may be tempted to think that it's not such a big problem after all. That's mad thinking. The time has come to do something about it, and step 2 is about seeing the insanity in what we've been doing and finding the belief that there can be a better way. This step can be hard. When I was under the grip of addiction, I always believed, Jules knows best. Even now it can be easy to slip back into this. And yet once we realise that there is more to this world than us, and that there is a greater power in the universe than ourselves, that's when the magic can start to happen, and God can start the work to restore us to what He originally created us to be. As you start this step, you may be finding yourself in the same position that I was. A, what if there is no higher power apart from me? Or B, if there is a higher power, why would they even be interested in me? Well, in the Bible, 1 Peter 5:7 says, Jesus specifically talks about cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. So on this step, can I encourage you to take a leap of faith and start to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. One of the things we'll be encouraging you to do in this step is to start becoming aware of the impact of your addictive or compulsive behaviours and identifying whether they've had positive or negative consequences. This really helped me see my addiction in a new light and helped me to start to realise that I needed some help outside of me to find a better path.
We know that there is hope no matter how dark things can feel. We encourage you to listen with an open heart to the testimonies each week and see how God can and will transform even the most hopeless situations. He did it for us and He can do it for you. We will now hear a short testimony from Israel, who has a powerful story of transformation and restoration.
Okay, my name's Israel Douglas, and I'm here to share my story and a little bit about how I got involved in the recovery course and what I love about the recovery course. In fact, step 2 says that there's a power that is greater than ourselves. That power changed my life. That power was Jesus Christ. So my story. I grew up in London, in Hackney. My dad left at the age when I was 2. In fact, I moved from there to Northampton. I went to school and I got thrown out of school at the age of 12. At the age of 16, I got involved in drugs and crime. But in fact, at the age of 10, I was put into care and went into 4 different children's homes and 4 different foster parents. In fact, the first time I heard about Jesus Christ was in May 1996. In fact, in Bristol in May 1996, my life changed forever. Jesus Christ changed my life because there is power. There is power to destroy life, and there is power to restore life. The power that we're talking about is God Almighty. This power changes lives, and Jesus Christ changes lives. And I can remember very early on in my Christian walk, when the sinful nature was broken in me, the things that I hate to do that I did, there was the crime, there was the drugs, there were other things that I didn't feel good about myself, and I continually repeated those things. But one of the most greatest things I remember is that nature being broken, where I no longer was a slave to do the things that I hated doing. And Jesus Christ is the one that broke that sinful nature in me. Now I'm married with 4 beautiful children. I work in a school. I have a passion and a love for youth, and I'm in ministry as an evangelist. And it gives me great pleasure to be a part of the recovery course, because at the heart of it is real compassion. At the heart of it is to see lives changed and set free. And of course, I have 4 beautiful children. And if it wasn't for Jesus Christ coming into my life, I don't think I could hold down a relationship or even a marriage or even a job. So I present to you that my life has changed because of this higher power. And that higher power is God Almighty, Jesus Christ, the true, eternal, and living God.
Today, I am really pleased to welcome a dear friend, the phenomenal Mandy.
Phenomenal. Oh,
Phenomenal.
Thank you.
So Mandy, let's just jump in and start with telling us some of your story, if that's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm mixed race. I was born in the 60s, and it's kind of like that was an uncomfortable time to be born because I'm half black and half white. So I was made to feel uncomfortable in my own skin from my parents, from my mum anyway, and from my grandmother. My grandmother and mother was prostitutes, and my dad was a punter. And so, yeah, so in our house it was really dark. You know, my mum separated from my dad when I was young. And then I was born in London, then went to live in Yorkshire. And it was just dark. I was sexually abused at a young age, which I'd buried. And to be fair, it wasn't until I came into recovery that it started to come back. And I'm still getting them flashbacks today, but I'm not afraid of them flashbacks now because I'm in a much better position as a mature woman to be nice to myself. So, so my mum was an alcoholic addict, and I started drinking from quite a young age. And it was weird because even when I first started smoking cigarettes, I couldn't stand the taste of cigarettes, but I smoked it until I mastered it. And I was kind of like the same like with marbles in school. I'm having all your marbles. So I had that same kind of thought pattern. If I was obsessed on something, I'm not stopping until I get it. And it didn't matter who I was going to harm or hurt in between or manipulate, I was going to get it. So I was born in the 60s, went to school on and off. You know, I used to see kids being picked up in schools by their mums and dads and think, do you know what I mean? Think that was normal, but knew that I didn't have that. You know, when I was little, I had 1, 2, 3, I had 4 abusers, which I've learned as I've done my recovery, you know. So I'd shut down from very young, you know, but there was something, I had such a rage in me and I didn't know what it was, you know, and I can remember as a child telling myself that, and this is something, an expectation that I put on myself as a child. I said to myself that when I grow up, I'm not going to be like my mother, I'm going to be a good mother. And this is some expectation that I put on myself. Obviously, it's unrealistic, you know, because I'm an addict, the same as my mum, you know, and I really believe that throughout the years I've been punishing myself because I didn't keep that expectation of myself. So I ended up on heroin, crack. I was a thief anyway from young because we got kind of like trained to rob the punters and stuff like that. But I swore that I wouldn't be like my mum, and I was an addict like my mum. I didn't understand that I had the inability to accept personal responsibility, which has been such a relief for me when I learnt that by working this program, because I crucified myself. I was my best punisher. I'd set myself up and punish myself and call myself all different kinds of names. But in the program, it's clear that I had the inability. If I could have been a good mum, I would have been a good mum, because that's all I ever wanted to be, and that's all I ever wanted was love and to be able to love, to be love and to love. But I had the inability for that.
And that's the hard thing, isn't it? Because it's not from wanting it, it's that you cannot actually do it. That's the baffling thing about addiction.
Absolutely. And that was the frustrating and the punishment, because why can't I do it? Everybody else is doing it, except for me. What's the matter with me? So I ended up moving back from London, from Yorkshire to London, and my dad ran gambling houses, so that was another dark place. And I was known as so-and-so's daughter, so-and-so's sister, never known as Mandy. Do you know what I mean? I was known as, and I hid behind that, to be fair. I hid behind people's names and reputations and stuff like that, but I ended up having 4 children, and 3 of my children were born addicted to heroin. What really crushed me is 3 of my children were born addicted to heroin, and what was so crushing is that while my children were in my belly, I can remember once my waters broke. My waters have broke, and any normal mother would go to hospital because your waters broke, but not me. I've got to stop at the crack house and get a parcel. Anywhere I went, I'd have to have a parcel, to take with me to hospital. And the sad thing, so I get my parcel, my waters broke, I'm in labour, they had to come and pull me out of the drug house. And that's how powerless I was and how powerful that I couldn't even get to the hospital without being pulled out. So I'm in the hospital, and even in the hospital, I'm nicking syringes. I'd be in the hospital, I'm on the thing, jumping off the labour where I'm going to do the delivery, and looking for syringes in the drawer. Wow. And that's how sick and obsessed I was, and didn't have the ability to be present.
And that's what you mean. It's like we're powerless over the addiction, but it is so unbelievably powerful that you can't do anything but that.
Couldn't do nothing, And it's sad because my son, right, he ended up in intensive care, and he's in his little incubator. I had my crack pipe underneath, and I had my gear, and I'm just in and out the toilet, and the doctor's telling me it's touch and go whether my baby would live. I heard that, but I couldn't be present. I knew I was meant to be there, but I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know what I was meant to be doing other than in and out the toilet. And this stuff was cutting me up because I'd placed an expectation on myself as a child that I'm going to be a good mum, and I failed that, And that happened with all my children. I was in and out of prison, for the 20 years that I was addicted to heroin. I was in and out of prison, and sadly, prison was like my second home. I'd find it, most people would want to go on a holiday for a break. I'd want to go to prison. I'd feel such a relief. I feel like, I can relax now. And what I didn't understand, that I had a fear of people. Wow. I didn't know that, because we got taught as young, to front it, to fake it, to have on different masks. You hide your secrets and you go out there and pretend everything's all right. And that's just what I didn't even know I was faking it, So So every time I'd go into prison and come out, I'd say, that's it, I'm going to change. But every time I come out of prison, I'd go straight down King's Cross, pick up, and then I'd be back in that endless loop. You know, I wouldn't go and pick up my children, you know, and two of my children, you know, I didn't see them for 11 years because every time I'd come out of prison, the weeks turned into months, it turned into 11 years. I could not get to my children, and that's how powerful. Once I had a drug in me, and my mentality was, oh, I'll have another two. I'll have more kids. But I could just throw them away. My mentality, my thinking, oh, that's all right, I'll have another two. Like that's like a childlike mentality. I'll throw that doll away, I'll buy a new doll. You know, had another two children, and it's the same pattern. I just could not stop. You know, and I can remember giving birth and then getting nicked and then bringing my baby up to the hospital, up to the prison to see me. And they've passed me the baby and I've dropped the baby because I thought they was passing me a parcel. And even then, I was so angry that they didn't bring me a parcel. I said, why have you come to see me? And they've come to show me my baby, you know, but I need drugs. It was as if my life depended on that, you know.
And that's what the obsession is, isn't it? You know, everything else goes out the window.
Absolutely. And the other side of that, I was crushed because I knew how it felt as a child, not having my mum present. I knew how that felt. But I had the inability, I was doing exactly the same thing, which actually helped me later on down the line to forgive my mum, you know. And I can remember, I ended up going in, it was 8 rehabs, you know, because I used to go into rehabs to get out of jail. You could get out of prison by just applying to a rehab. Then I'd go to the rehab and think, no, I'd rather be in prison. This is too hard. When they're asking me, how do you feel? What do you mean, how do I feel? Them feelings have been buried. I don't even know what a feeling is, you know. All I knew was rage. You know, when I was angry, all I knew was when I'm angry, I'm going to hit you. And if I don't hit you, I'll use something or get somebody else to hit you, you know. And it was my 8th rehab. Coming out of prison, ended up going down King's Cross, as you do. Went down King's Cross. And I see this guy, right, who I know to be a thief, a robber. And I said to him, bring me in. And he looked at me. He looked really well. His skin was glowing. So my thinking was, he must be using really good creams like Clinique. He must be earning money. That was my mentality. Because he was looking well. I'm thinking, okay, he can even buy good creams. So I've gone up to him. I said, bring me in, right? And he looked at me, had this dirty big smile. And he said, Jesus. So I'm thinking, what's the matter with you? You know, then all my head could think of, he has to be robbing a church and he's not telling me. Because I don't know what he's talking about, Jesus. You know, I thought, what is this man? Why are you telling me what he's doing in a church? So I ended up going along to this, finding out what church he was going to. Before that, I actually went to his house. Because I thought, well, if his house is all right, then he must be earning enough money. And his house looked all right. This was my thinking. He didn't know I was thinking this. So I've ended up going along to this church, right? And I'm watching him, right? But what happened was women kept on coming up to me and I'm thinking, what's their problem? Do they think they can rob me? Because I'm not coming up to you unless I'm going to rob you. And I'm thinking, why are they coming up to me? And there was being nice. And I thought, whoa. And it really freaked me out because like anybody that was nice to me as a child, they abused me. They wanted to take something from me, you know. So I was walking around with my arms folded, you know, and they kept coming in my way. I kept trying to watch this guy, and but I do know that at that point, all the time, it was the Holy Spirit that was drawing me. I didn't understand it then. I thought I was going there to rob. But God had another plan. I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all.
And the lovely thing is, the session we're on today, session 2, is about coming to believe. So obviously that is a massive part of your recovery journey.
Absolutely.
So if you can elaborate on that a bit.
Absolutely. So anyway, I ended up, kept on going back. So kept on taking me back to that church. And then a lady asked me to asked Jesus in my life. I still didn't know what she was talking about, but I knew I needed help. You know, I was desperate because by then I'd become a prostitute, the same as my mother. You know, and my mother, that was her work, that was my grandmother's work. And you know, me being a prostitute, I was giving myself away. You know, because by then I was really at the bottom. I was on the floor and I would sell myself for a fiver, for a tenner, for nothing. You know, so I was desperate and I didn't want to go back into prison and I wanted to be a mum. So I was at rock bottom and I'll do whatever it takes to get whatever I need. So I just asked this man called Jesus in my life, right? I didn't know. I still left the church, I'm still using drugs, right? So I phoned this woman up and I said, you mugged me off, right? You said, say this prayer, right? You said to me, slip your hand up, let the pastor know that I've said the prayer. And I said, you made me look like an idiot, right? I was so angry. And all she said to me was, Mandy, the old's gone, you're a new creation. I didn't know what she was talking about, right? But what happened for me, right, I started to withdraw for heroin, right? And that word came to the forefront of my mind and I spoke it. And my withdrawals went. I know it sounds crazy. Immediately, my withdrawals went. So now I know it's real, right? Now I know there's something in this. I didn't know who this Jesus person was, but I knew that there was something going on. And in between all of that, I went to see my mother to get some money for some crack, right? Only God knew she was going to die 3 weeks later. So whilst I'm visiting her to get some money, right, I said to her, Mum, I forgive you. I don't know what I was forgiving her for because I didn't know about the abuse. And I said, Mum, forgive me for hitting you, for beating you when I was little. And my mum touched my head, right? And I'd never felt that love that I felt for 60 seconds, right? And so I know that I bonded with my mum before she died. Because my mum got murdered 3 weeks later because of her lifestyle and her drug use and stuff like that, you know. So I started to know that there's something real. So I ended up going into this Christian rehab, right? And what it was, I couldn't say the word God. When I tried to say the word God, this is my story, and I'm going through trauma stuff at the minute. So I couldn't say the word God, and I couldn't tell these people that I'm in this Christian rehab. I didn't know how to tell them that this is what's happening. I kept on thinking, you're disgusting, you're dirty, what's wrong with you? But what it was, I got to know Jesus. And then Jesus took me to know the loving Father, because my father was also one of my abusers. And I'm going through something at the minute around my trauma and where religion was used in my trauma at the minute. So I got to know the loving Father, you know. So I'm in the church, and that's how my story is. I got clean. I got my children restored back to me. I got my first ever paid job, and I was doing great things ministry-wise, right? But there was still something on the inside, you know. And I wanted to reach a lot of people, and that's what brought me into the 12 steps. That is what brought me into the 12 steps, because I didn't realise how closed-minded I was with my religion, right? I didn't understand how closed-minded and how fearful I was in doing something outside of that and saying the word higher power. I thought I was being disloyal to Jesus if I said a higher power or acknowledged something else being a higher power. But my understanding is that even the church is a higher power. Even my understanding is that it's me with chocolates, like issues with chocolates and that. And if my son comes into that room at that moment, he is a power greater than me that can talk to me to stop me from eating them chocolates, because I don't eat the chocolates. It's not replacing Jesus. Jesus is my foundation. But the power, and I do understand the thing about the 12 steps as well, it's such a phenomenal tool into reaching people that have no faith or little faith. And all the time he's been teaching me how I speak to myself, you know, because oh my gosh, sometimes I've wrote a letter out of my inner child, what my inner child's telling me, and when I read it, I wouldn't talk like that to another human being, the way I talk to myself. You know, so I'm learning how to to change how I speak to myself, because I know the program, you know, and that's another thing that I love about the fellowship, right? It just says, keep coming back, you know, and that's what my faith, that's what Jesus says. When he died on the cross, he died with his arms open, and he just says, keep coming back, you know, and that's just something that I love about this program.
And I know that you're passionate about what the recovery course is about, with the Christian element of recovery as well. And I love that, and I love your honesty. Can you think of one specific moment that you really like, the most memorable, life-changing moment for you?
I think that where he set me free, where I got set free from instantly, but I didn't. My roots wasn't deep enough, so I went back. I wasn't in that foundation. But I think where forgiveness, where I mean, my mum and dad's dead now, and they were my abusers as well. And even though I love them, there was a big block. It was a conditional love. It was a conditional love, and they're dead. And on Mother's Day and Father's Day, I've got a mug, one with saying "I love you, Mum," and another one saying "I love you, Dad." So what's happening for me now? I can live that child, that can get that mug and say "Love you, Dad," because I didn't. That was missing. So for me, there's a scripture in the Bible: I will restore what the locusts have eaten. So all these things that are being given back to me, it's like my son, the one that I didn't bring up for 11 years. So I've missed out on all their education, right? He's 40 now, and he a few weeks ago, he goes, "Mum," he sent me a certificate. He was so proud that he's doing this course. So even though I missed it then, I'm getting it now. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? He's restoring, and for me that is just, and I'm grateful for them little nuggets. I know I've got that.
And recovery really is about restoration, isn't it? And drawing closer to Jesus. And can you leave us with one little bit of sort of encouragement or words of wisdom to anyone watching this today that may have been touched by your story?
Yeah, I mean, all I know is this program, right? This program, God makes sense out of nonsense, right? And if you give it a chance, right? I know that your future can be greater than your past, and I know that nothing's wasted. Nothing's wasted, but it's something where you've got to center yourself in the middle of it and allow to be loved where you think you're unlovable.
Bless you. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today, Mandy, and I'm sure it's going to have impacted many people's lives. I was really moved throughout that. So thanks again, and keep up that amazing recovery.
Thanks, Emma.
So this week, we see that relying on our own power has gotten us where we are today. Choosing to let God influence our lives from now on will provide the power required to bring order out of the chaos that we may be going through and bring back sanity. You won't ever experience the gift of freedom that Christ has for you until you choose to turn to him and believe that he can and will restore us into freedom.
The great news is that the recovery course is being run all over the country and online. If you want to find out more, you can watch the full TBN Recovery Course series, visit our website, www.therecoverycourse.com, or email us at info@therecoverycourse.com, or follow us on any of the social media platforms.
Join us next time for session 3, where we look at the third step. We look forward to seeing you then. Goodbye from me and Jules.